Okay, let's see here. This is going to go over the football field lab that we did, where we went outside and we got some data, and some kids missed it, so this is for you. You would need to get the data from another group, and then from that data, you need to make a position time graph, a velocity time graph, and an acceleration time graph. So the first four tables that they did, the kids went outside and they went from the 0-yard line to the 50-yard line, and for table 1 they walked to the 50-yard line. So you're going to need to have a graph like this, put your times in, you need to go up to 50, so 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. I'm just going to put 50 down here for the purposes of the video so it can go a little faster. And you're going to plot all the times from table 1. Table 1's going to have, they're at the 0-yard line at 0 seconds, and then how many seconds it took them to get to the 10-yard, and then the 20-yard, and the 30, and the 40, and you're going to have to plot all these points. But basically, for table 1, they walked to the 50. So they're not going to have a very steep slope on that because it takes quite some time to walk to the 50. And then the second time they sped up a little bit and they jogged to the 50. So that graph looks something like this. And the third time they ran, each time they were keeping a constant velocity, so they have a constant positive slope. And the last time, for table 4, they started at the 50 and they ran back to the 0-yard line. So it would look something like this. So when you get the data from a friend, this represents table 1. That's what your table 1 should look like. Table 2, table 3, and table 4. Okay. Once you have your tables actually your graphs actually put together, you should have times down here, and you should have all your positions up here with several points plotted on each line. Okay. Once you have real numbers on your graph, you can calculate the slope of each line. And remember, the slope of each line is the change in the y-axis, which we're using x for position. We're not changing this to an x-axis. X stands for position here, so when we get the change in the y-axis, it's change in position, divided by the change in the x-axis, which is change in time. That actually gives us the average velocity. These three have positive slopes, but this one has a negative slope. So these three had positive velocities. This one has a negative velocity. So once you know what those velocities are and you've calculated the slopes, then you should make a velocity time graph. Now on the velocity time graph, I have a negative region and a positive region, just because I have a negative velocity, so I need to have space for that. Okay, so once I've calculated the slopes, I'll find out that this is the slowest velocity. Okay, so wherever that is, you're going to have to calculate the slope of each one of these and then put your velocities on the y-axis. Go up in equal increments. Okay, but you'll find out that this one has the slowest velocity, and you run 50 yards, so it goes on for quite some time. Whatever time is here is when you stop this line. This one's going a little faster, so I'm going to move up a little bit. You're going to have to calculate your velocity, but it'll go over for just that long. Our timelines will match. Our y-axes will not match, but our x-axes will match. Okay? We're running, so that's much faster, so it doesn't take so long. It'll look something like that. Okay? And then when we're running in the negative direction, it looks like we ran about the same pace here, so that should be about the same distance from 0, and it's negative. If all of these lines are the same length, that would be wrong. Okay? If you're running faster, it takes you less time to cover 50 meters. Okay, once you're finished with that, you had to calculate the slope of these three lines. So this is line 1, 2, 3, and 4. But you can just look at those and see that the slope is 0. They're not leaning up and they're not leaning down. They're level, so the slope is 0. But when you do calculate the slope, it gives you the acceleration. So you had to go and make an acceleration time graph. But since none of these have an acceleration, really all of our lines would be down here at 0. Maybe different lengths, but you're not even going to be able to tell. But they're all at 0 because there's 0 slope. So there is 0 acceleration. Okay, so that's for tables 1 through 4. Get those from a friend. For tables 5 and 6, the students had to go to the 0-yard line, and they had to walk 20 yards, and then jog 20 yards, and then run 20 yards, all in one setting. So this time they actually went a total distance of 60 yards. So from the table, you'll need to make a position time graph, and your walk might take quite some time, but then they jogged, didn't take quite as long, and then they ran, and that took even less time. So your walk, jog, run table will look something like this, and it has 3 completely different slopes. And then that was table 5. And then your run, jog, walk looks something like this, and that was table 6. So on this, you had to get the slope of each section, and then you had to turn that into a velocity time graph. We didn't have any negative velocity, so I'm just going to make a positive area for my velocity time graph. Table 5 would look something like this. Again, you have to calculate the slope so you can put numbers in here. But the first slope is pretty low, but I've got to keep it going till it hits whatever time is here. That's how long this line should be. And then I go a little faster, and whenever it hits here, that's how long this line should be. And then I go even faster. Okay? Whoops, I think I made those the same length. This one really should be shorter. I wish I had white out. But let's do this. Get a little sheet of paper off. Let's make that one shorter. There we go. Now that looks pretty good. So it's going to go long, not quite as long, and then even shorter. Because if you're running really fast, it doesn't take you very long to get the next 20 yards. This one looks similar, but we start out with a high velocity, followed by a jog, followed by a walk. So it's kind of the opposite. So get your tables, get this done so that you can study it well for the lab quiz, because you'll still have to take the lab quiz, which is over 2 labs, the lid lab and this PT, VT, AT lab. Okay, good luck guys.